Strickland, and tonight I'll be discussing the Trivium and the Noble Lie. You'll learn about the Noble Lie and how it is used, the benefits of the Trivium as it relates to the Noble Lie, and the specific liberal arts that form the Trivium: general grammar, formal logic, and classical rhetoric. Hopefully you decide to live your life without the Noble Lie and learn the Trivium yourselves. By learning the Trivium, you become empowered to critically think, ask questions, and expose the Noble Lie, leading to a life of truth and freedom. So before I continue, I just wanted to say that I'm really serious about my presentation that I'm giving tonight. I wouldn't be giving this presentation in my pajamas if I wasn't so serious. Bad joke. Okay. Yeah, after watching How I Met Your Mother, I've been sleeping this way ever since, but that's it. So anyway, this is one of the greatest secrets that you can learn in your lifetime, and I'm hoping this presentation will be on YouTube by the weekend. So, in the movie The Matrix, Morpheus offers Neo a choice. Take the blue pill to wake up the next day with life the way it was, or it's in there, take the red pill and be forever changed by the truth. Let's all take the red pill together.
Oh my gosh.
So, the philosophy of the Noble Lie originated in Plato's work, The Republic. The Noble Lie was told by rulers to the people to justify their position of power. Plato believed the Noble Lie was necessary to maintain a stable social structure, since he felt most people weren't smart enough to look after their own or society's best interests. The few smart people of the world were needed to lead the rest of the flock, so the Noble Lie continued. The Noble Lie has been used throughout history for the purpose of many people in power, such as kings, clergy, and politicians. Examples of the Noble Lie: kings in history, they would claim they had the right to rule by the authority of God. Clergy may claim that marriage is between only a man and a woman, but I wanted to point out that there's arguments that use the Bible to falsify this claim, and I would recommend you all watch the gay debate on YouTube. Politicians, they claim that we may need to go to war in Iraq to remove weapons of mass destruction and liberate the Iraqi people to spread democracy, or that we need to raise taxes to bail out big corporations because it would hurt the economy worse if they go bankrupt. Well, as for benefits of the Trivium, as grammar, logic, and rhetoric are learned and practiced together, they form a system of establishing clarity of personal thought known as the Trivium. The Trivium helps people overcome the material world and live a rich and intellectual life of truth and freedom. The Trivium is the truth we speak into the Noble Lie. So let's watch some clips from What You've Been Missing, the documentary film where I first learned about the Trivium.
Get their foot in the door where they could wedge this doctrine in and create rationalization.
The Noble Lie is only powerful as long as we believe in these myths that they've created, right? So what's a good thing that average people could use to insulate themselves from these other people using that liberal education against all of us?
Well, the first thing they have to do is question the Noble Lie itself, but in order to do that effectively, they have to be using the same tools that are being used against them, that they're being taken advantage of because of the absence of these tools. So in order to level the playing field with the people who are oppressing us, we need to learn what their methodology is, and it is this 7 liberal arts, or the Trivium and Quadrivium methodology. Primarily, the Trivium gives you the ability to critically think and to analyze what exactly is the Noble Lie, what questions do I need to ask to unravel it and expose it, and then once you've got all that information sorted out, then you can take constructive action based on what you know as opposed to what you hope you think is true.
And how do you tell fact from fiction?
Well, I scream louder at fiction than I do at fact. That's how I tell it. No, I use the Trivium methods to the best of my ability, right? You have to have discernment, and you have to be able to do your due diligence, but once you've integrated that methodology of understanding grammar and logic and rhetoric, then it makes the information you take in with your 5 senses a lot easier to process, a lot easier to understand, and especially a lot easier to communicate back to other people. So, you know, it's one of those things, just like learning, you know, the basics of mathematics. It's one of those things that you need to learn, because without it, you know, everything else you try and do is going to be lacking. And you don't really realize it until you've learned it, right? I thought I was smart until I learned the Trivium. And even though I know I'm not necessarily smart, at least I'm more conscious of my own incompetence.
Exactly. Exactly. So what?
So, general grammar is the art of inventing and combining symbols to express thought. It answers the question of who, what, where, and when of a subject. And by discovering and ordering facts and reality, we have basic knowledge. Let's take a look at several examples of grammar. For who, the troops. What, money. Where, the Middle East. And when, 9/11. We'll use these examples throughout the rest of the presentation. Formal logic is better known as the art of thinking. It answers the why of a subject. And by establishing relationships amongst facts, we have basic understanding. Let's take a look at our previous examples and ask questions about them. Why are the troops coming home with PTSD? Why is it more expensive to buy things, like gas? Why are we fighting wars in the Middle East? And how come after 9/11 we get searched extensively when we go to the airport? Noticing a pattern? Classical rhetoric is the art of communicating thought from one mind to another. It provides the how of a subject, and by systematically using knowledge and understanding, we have basic wisdom. What are some noble lies that we could be told about our previous questions? The troops have PTSD from the sacrifices they have made for our freedom. Gas is expensive because the economy is bad. We're at war in the Middle East to spread democracy around the world, and there's more airport security for our own safety. But do you buy that? Let's ask some more questions. Do the troops have PTSD from the trauma of fighting an unjust war? Is gas expensive because oil is scarce? Are we really at war in the Middle East because of oil? And as for the airport security, well, I'm not sure what to ask. Now that we've covered the essentials of the Trivium and the noble lie, let's watch a short video clip and see what we think about it. This is Congressman Ron Paul in the South Carolina Republican presidential primary debate in 2008.
Congressman Paul, yet another question about electability. Do you have any, sir? There's always the question as to whether or not you are in fact viable. Your differences with the Republicans with the rest of the Republicans on this stage has raised questions about whether or not you can actually win the Republican nomination, sir.
Well, we've only had 2 little primaries so far, so it's pretty premature to decide which one is going to be the candidate. But, you know, when you think about it, if you measure everything I've ever said, every vote I've ever taken against the Constitution, you know, I'm a strict constitutionalist. Are you suggesting the Republicans should write me off because I'm a strict constitutionalist? I'm the most conservative member here. I have voted, you know, against more spending and wasting government than anybody else. So you're suggesting that I'm not electable and the Republicans don't want me because I'm a strict fiscal conservative, because I believe in civil liberties? Why should we not be defending civil liberties? And why should we not be talking about foreign policy that used to be the part of the Republican Party? Mr. Republican Robert Taft didn't even want us to be in NATO. And you're saying now that we have to continue to borrow money from China to finance this empire that we can't afford? Let me see if I get this right. We need to borrow $10 billion from China, and then we give it to Musharraf, who's a military dictator who overthrew an elected government, and then we go to war, we lose all these lives promoting democracy in Iraq. I mean, what's going on here? And you're saying that this isn't appealing to Republicans? Where did this come about? I think this is a Republican message. I defend the platform. It used to say we got rid of the Department of Education. It doesn't say that. Now, we as Republicans went and doubled the size of the Department of Education So where have we gone? I think we've lost our way. We're getting the insinuation that I am less Republican because of that.
Congressman, thank you very much. We have to take one more break. We'll be right back with one of the most contentious issues of the day. Stay tuned.
For a quick recap, we covered the noble lie and how it is used, the benefits of the trivium as it relates to the noble lie, and the specific liberal arts that form the trivium: general grammar, formal logic, and classical rhetoric. I very passionately encourage you to learn the trivium so you can expose the noble lie in your life. The chains of the noble lie become broken when the truth of the trivium sets you free. Thank you. Real quick, I just wanted to recommend some of these works cited. Getting Things Done, the audiobook by David Allen's great. Liberty Defined is a great book too. The Trivium and How to Read a Book are good. And watch the whole documentary, What You've Been Missing. It's really good. Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Why that picture?
The ponies are depicting Plato's Republic, I think, or the Utopia. Because I referenced Plato in it. So.
Absolutely. I can see the unicorn, definitely.
Any questions?
What is the noble lie?
What exactly is the noble lie?
The noble lie, it's essentially a lie that people in power use to maintain their power. So it's kind of a way to manipulate society so people are comfortable in whatever their state of life is. If they're, like, say, lower class or middle class, it encourages people to stay small and not big.
Does that mean it's similar to the trust us, we're in charge thing, or the because I say so sort of thing?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Without, like, basically following or obeying without questioning things.
Mm-hmm.
So Ron Paul is just like a supporter of the noble lie, or he's
Well, he's more like I'd say he's kind of a critical thinker, and he challenged a lot of people in his own party on issues, especially concerning the war in Iraq and foreign policy. And he's really big in, like, economics and looking at what happens. And he predicted a lot of different like economic bubble collapses, like the real estate bubble collapse.
I'm a little confused about the trivium, this concept, because when you broke it down, this idea of formal grammar, like, we're all kind of separately taught those things throughout our life, and at least with the education system in the United States, I feel like we all kind of touch on those. So is the trivium essentially all of those working together at the same time?
Yes, because what happens when you take classes or you learn things, you kind of tend to compartmentalize things. But if you kind of integrate your thinking, you're more able to form thoughts, opinions, or you're better apt at, like, finding truth if you compare things and you work different parts of your brain together.
On the same issue, not like looking at it. Oh.
Well, basically, if you're trying to figure out more about any subject, you want to know, like, all the different, like, definitions of things, how it is, how big it is, or how extensive it is. And then you start just asking questions to understand it more. And then you get to a point where you can explain things better.
So it kind of, in essence, too, like, learning to not take things at, like, face value, really asking every question you can to fully understand. For example, when you're reading an article about the war in Iraq, like, this one author is going to say this one thing. So let's read, like, 20 articles instead of just one and then forming our opinion.
Yeah, like, and that's the thing, like, you don't take things at face value, like, you really think about it, you want to find out where your sources are from, and
you can't do that without, like, utilizing the trivia, or you can, but you'll really find truth within the trivia?
You would find more truth if you use the trivium, yes.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, you got it, definitely makes more sense. Thank you.
What are benefits then of exposing
The benefits, well, I guess if you're part of some kind of a, I don't know, organization, or if you follow things like maybe like, for example, you could watch Fox News, and then maybe if you thought more about it, maybe you'd see maybe they have some kind of agenda, but it's the same for maybe other media outlets that might be, like, more liberal. It could happen in religious institutions, like if you get told things, but it just doesn't feel right. Because sometimes, kind of like what we learned with Blink, like you know things like before you really think about it. Like you'll know if something's wrong or not. But the other big thing is, you know, if you're going to go and vote, like if you watch somebody who's running for like Congress or, you know, what have you, and they're giving speeches and saying things, but it doesn't seem right, or it does some things don't add up, you're able to think more critically about it and know, oh, actually I should vote for this other person.
Do you think some people kind of support the noble lie, like, subconsciously in a sense? Like, it's just this thing that's, like, now been totally woven in or, like, in society, but people don't necessarily know that they support it or that they spit it or whatever the noble lie?
I'd say, like, if you study philosophy extensively, you'd be more aware of it, like the noble lie and what it means. But I'd say, yeah, there's people in power, people that might have a lot of money or influence over how things go about in our country or the world, that like the noble lie the way it is. You have power, you have influence over people, you can control what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. So yeah, I would assume that folks like that would support the noble lie because they want to remain in power and continue doing whatever it is they feel is best for the rest of the world.
So like the noble lie is that one concept of like putting people within this hierarchy, except it manifests itself in like various lies and all these different ways that it's like disguised?
I'd say very generally the noble lie manifests in any kind of power structure that you could imagine, and whoever's at the top would be somebody who would most want to facilitate it.
We're all walking noble lies. That's what it makes me feel like.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
So, when Richard Sweet hears about how horrible Islamic terrorists are and how they're going to blow up everybody, and his bullshit detector goes off and he says maybe that's not necessarily the truth. Is that the Trivium?
Yes, because the thing is, like, if after 9/11, they were showing on the news, like, repeat images of the towers crumbling over and over and over, and people were really upset about it. And then, oh, we're going after Osama bin Laden and these Muslim terrorists. And then, like, maybe not all the time, but they let things slide where people might say things like, yeah, we should just bomb them all. Without even, like, knowing, like, who they are, or who, like, they assume that all Muslims would just want to, like, you know, bomb us or death to the United States, but it's not like that. They're extremist groups. But what happens is when people are afraid of something they don't understand, they'll make judgments or they'll draw, like, false conclusions about it. But another thing that Trivium is good for is it can also, by critically thinking about things, you can actually face fears that you might have and overcome them. You can use the Trivium, like, on yourself, on your own thoughts and emotions, too. Why am I thinking this today? Why do I feel this today? Who am I? You know, I'm a human being. I deserve love. Like, those are some great conclusions to come to, but nobody really thinks about the thoughts or the feelings they have sometimes. They just know that, yeah, they accept them, or they think they're always going to feel, like, depressed.
Wow. Really cool.
I think another good example of the Trivium being triggered so that people start to analyze the way that things are being talked about is George Bush's statement that in regards to the September 11th attacks, he said that this crusade, this war on terrorism, is going to take a while. And the idea of using that term crusade seemed to be a pivotal sort of moment for a lot of people, where it sort of shook up our perception of what was going on. Because, of course, none of us see ourselves as wanting to be involved in a crusade in that medieval sense of the term, right?
Yeah.
We can see ourselves being involved in a lengthy struggle, but a crusade seems to be a different matter entirely, and one ultimately based on religion. And so I think that that's a moment when we can see the Trivium at work for a large majority of American people. So that might be a good example.
Okay.
But I imagine you have a bunch more.
I see that. That's a good example, Dr. Lee. But I couldn't have seen it without understanding the Trivium. I mean, I know that sounds stupid, but it's kind of true. You know, like, now that I'm aware that it kind of exists and it's working together, it'll be, like, easier to see it.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I highly recommend, it's worth looking into and trying out.
Well, isn't the basic tenet of the Trivium asking questions?
Yeah, it's like the essential of philosophy. Like, you want to understand the world you live in, and what's true. It's the quest for truth.
How do you use it in your life?
Right now, I'm just kind of learning about it, and I have some books that kind of cover the Trivium, basic grammar and functioning of language. It's a lot like a very high-end English class, like the coursework, but I'm not in a course. It's just books that I have. And I've been just really busy with school this semester. I haven't been doing it as much as I would like to, but that's going to change. And the Trivium Education website up here, triviumeducation.com, that's where they tell you, like, if Trivium for beginners, like where you can start. That's where I found out about getting things done, how to read a book, and the Trivium book. And it's just, you kind of start and just keep going. Any final questions? Yes.
I like all the concepts about critical thinking and the way that language is used and all that kind of stuff. Where did the term the Trivium come from? It's a little suspect to me.
Is it like more modern?
It's Latin and based.
It's Latin. I think this originated, and I could be wrong, at the time of Aristotle. This is Aristotelian logic and philosophy, and these are the 7 schools, the Trivium and the Quadrivium, which is the other 4 liberal arts. Anyone? Going once, going twice?